Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Blended Garden Community. And I'm so excited because if you look to my left or my right, I'm not sure which one is it. There you go. This is Miss Lynnette Arthur, and I have been waiting so long to get this woman onto this platform to talk because she is the woman of diversity and inclusion and equity in the New York City independent schools. And I'm so happy.
For
Hey,
the young
girl.
people. Hi, I am so happy. Thank you for having me. And yes, my passion, is diversity and equity work, but more specifically tailored to the youngest learners, right? Like what that work looks like from ages, let's say 2 to 5.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so glad to have you on because I myself am a preschool teacher, and I think Lynette, that's the one thing that I've been talking about. Like, it's really difficult. I'm finding it's difficult for teachers to have these conversations with the little one. And I think
Mm,
that's the question. Like, how do we talk about it? How do we talk about this with the little ones? And you know, it kind of only comes up sometimes during Martin Luther King Day
right.
or Black History Month. And then you have that awkward moment of that teacher who's like, okay, how do I share this? And I'll tell you a quick story and then we'll get to chatting because I want to talk about some wonderful things that you have been doing to not just, I don't know, help children understand, but also help other teachers see that there is a way to introduce it to them. And that's why with the book, The Blended Garden, I wanted to write a book that you could give it to children in little pieces. Like they don't need the civil rights movement yet, you know? A funny story. Mason, he's in the Navy now, he's 19, but when he
I
was four,
know.
I
So
know. Yes. I'm so proud of him too. But when he was 4, I sent him to school with a Martin Luther King book, and there was one other brown child in the class, and the mom was kind of like, oh, we should really. I was like, okay, I really wasn't behind it at the moment because I just didn't feel good about young children reading these books yet until they really,
yeah.
like, okay, I'll send it in. And when I picked him up, the teacher said, she said, oh, the book was great. They were so interested. And then she mentioned the gun, the gun the gun was the takeaway of these children. They were so interested in the gun.
Yeah.
They were curious. They were interested in the death, and they were, And I just felt like, oh, that's not the message that I know I want to give to
Yeah.
young children. So anyway,
Well,
so
I don't even mention, I know I've told you this before, but when I'm teaching about Dr. King, I don't mention the fact that he was shot. Not to them, and not
but
right now.
how do you do
That's
that and
actually
read a
okay. And I
book?
would love to, yes, we'll definitely, discuss
Okay.
this further, but I do a project every year. I read about him. I ad lib the books. I feel like, because I think there are a lot of books that have been written about Dr. King that are amazing. But I think sometimes it's okay to just sort of give your own, like, read it from your own words.
Exactly.
You can
Exactly.
use the pictures and just tell them the story of what you know and the great work that he did, and
Right.
just really try to bring it to their level of understanding. And if
Right.
you talk about the fact that he was shot, that's literally all they remember,
That's
is the
all they
fact that he was
remember.
killed, or the fact, he's, and so I
And they
have
also just
shared.
see visuals of angry white people and angry black people, and that's a conversation that they're just not ready for. I think the one time I did bring Dr. King in my own classroom, it was a picture. It was just a simple picture, and I put it up, and it was him on a swing playing with his children, so that they could see this is a man who had a family, and
Right.
he wanted everyone to treat everyone kindly. And then we made a king cake. I just took a bunch of flour and water and beads, and everyone's hands was in it, and that was all it was. We're all together, working together in each other's space. Happy King Day. So
Exactly.
anyway, so
And
I
I
want
tell
to. Mhm.
I was going to say, and I, what I sort of always do with my students, we do this activity where I literally segregate the room for 10
Yes,
minutes.
let's talk about that.
Um, so I usually use like either like green tape, blue tape, like I use like, soft masking tape. And for 10 minutes, they can only go where the color of the tape is.
Mhm.
They have. I put it like on, their clothing. So they know they're either green or they're blue. And so like I section off like dramatic play. I section off like all the different areas in the room to either green or blue. And I said for 10 minutes. And I let them know, like I put a little sign that, when it's going to be over. For 10 minutes, you can only play in the areas of the color that you are.
Wow.
And so by the end of that 10 minutes, Shahida, they are very aware of what equality feels like, what unfairness feels like,
Mhm.
what it means to be told that you can't do something because of something that you can't control,
And to be
right? Color
excluded.
giving, what it feels like to be excluded. And so at the end of the lesson, of the activity, I usually say to them something like, well, Dr. King believed that, people should be able to, go where they want, no matter what color they were, love who they want, no matter what color,
Mm.
eat where they want,
Wow.
travel how they want, go to the school that they want, no matter
Wow.
what color. So, help me be like Dr. King and let's take all this tape down. And
That is
the
awesome.
fervor in which they're ripping the tape off, and making the room again like it was Dr.
Mhm.
King. So
Mhm.
they go home with such an understanding. And I always email my parents, with communication, like, this is what we did today. These are some of the things that came up. This is what they understood.
Mhm.
And here's how to further the conversation
And
at home.
that's key. This is what they understood. And with the little babies, we have to be thinking, what can they understand? They understand color.
Yeah.
They understand the feeling. It's just a feeling. From the time a baby is born and out of the womb, they understand a feeling. They understand intimacy. They understand, when a mother looks at them, when a mother turns away. So even at 2, 3, 4, they know what it feels like when someone says, whether it's with words or behavior, you can't be here. You
Yeah.
can't play here.
Yes, they do. And they may not understand what feeling that is in them that it's
Right.
causing. Like, is this sadness? Am I
Right.
angry? Like, am I hurt? Just sort of what. And so that's our jobs, right? That's
Right.
the emotional intelligence that we're then giving them language to describe what they
Right.
feel.
And
Um,
when you talk about language, I mean, that was really the whole point of what made me, because people ask, well, what made you write a book about a garden, a flower? And, you
I know
know,
you're so creative. Like, you wrote a book.
Lynnette, I was just in my yard and I just started, it just came to me. I was like, let me write this down. Kyle was not interested when I said, look what I wrote. And I said, fine, if you don't like it, I'm going to do something with it. It was like literally on little tiny pieces of paper.
Yeah.
but when you talk about the language, the book starts off, once upon a time in a colorful garden, a dandelion sat alone and disheartened. And the illustrator, Anna O'Donnell, she did a wonderful job of the first page you see is just this dandelion alone. And I really wanted that picture to create a feeling connected to language, you
Right.
know? And with the little ones, it's tricky. But then as they get older, you can have that dialogue. Like next week, I'm doing a book tour, a book, what do you call it, a book author visit at a school in Massachusetts virtually. And it's 105-year-olds. And
Okay.
it's through a program called No Place for Hate. And I'm excited because there's so much language that you can connect to these images. But the fact that you took something so abstract but concrete in our world, our adult world, and brought it
Mhm.
into your classroom of 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds, and they went home with an understanding, like you use that word understanding, like how you connect with the parents to talk about what did they understand.
Mhm.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
It's always every year. It's so powerful. And every year I get emails from parents like, this was amazing. And, my child came home talking and understanding that the world used to be separate and now it's not. And Dr. King helped fight. Like, they had this wealth, like it was, it permeated, like,
Mhm.
it penetrated their beings and they were able to really grasp what Dr. King wanted, what he stood for,
Right.
how he wanted people to just be able to come together, you
Right. And
know?
then that behavior transcends into the classroom community. So when
Mhm.
you hear that, you can't play with us. Well, let's remember our experience of what it
Yeah.
felt like when we had our orange and blue or red and blue, and then they have that that concrete thing to go back to.
Yeah.
So you
And
read the
that's the
book too.
motto in my classroom. I always like that's the motto. Like you can't say you can't play. There
Mm,
are some exceptions though.
right, right,
You know, if I see a child working on some amazing thing and they're just
right,
doing a pendant, no, I'm not gonna let like all the,
right. You can
let
observe, you can ask
infiltrate it. Right,
questions,
right, right.
but that's
But for
it.
the most part, in community spaces, like, you know, you can't say we're not excluding anybody.
Right, we're not so what was it like? You read the book. I thank you so much for reading it to your
I
students.
did. I got a
Tell
chance
me
to
about
read it.
that.
Yes, I got a chance to read it with my classroom. Initially, I was trying to like make up a song to it. I got like three
We
pages.
both were.
And
Didn't
I
work.
was like, I don't know so, but I'm still determined to try. We could work
I
on it,
think it may
you know?
work with spoken word. I have a friend, Keith. You remember Keith Kimmett?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been trying to get him on to read because wouldn't it be interesting to hear it in a kind of spitting way? Once upon a time in a colorful garden.
Right, right.
We should do that.
Absolutely.
We should do that like in a spoken word. Anyway, okay, but let's talk about your classroom. I want to hear because I have not read the book to children yet. I mean, actually, I did. I did do
You
my
have
one
not read
reading.
your book to
Well, I
children?
did my first reading
Yeah.
with some children at beginnings and with the art studio teacher, and the children drew dandelions and their interpretation, and I read the book. But that was my first time. So I'm now starting to read to children. So this is my first time hearing feedback where I can really just sit back and hear the feedback. So I'm going to sit back and hear the feedback from your kids. I'm so excited. The blended garden feedback.
The blended garden. Well, the beautiful part is like, because, so many things have been remote this year. I have like a white screen. And so it was great to be able to project the book up larger than life. And we read through it and were able to discuss some of the things. And they definitely noticed, like, I just asked them, like, what do you notice? They noticed that the flower was alone.
Mm,
Talked about what the flower wanted. She wants to be with the other flowers.
mm,
So they definitely got how this flower was feeling. And I think that's one of the first things that children connect with when we are reading them stories is how the character is feeling, you
yes.
know? And the beauty of this is what we've created with words. Usually they're looking at the expression of a character, right?
Mhm,
He looks mad, he looks sad, right? But this, it was just a flower.
mhm,
It was
mm,
just a painting, beautiful painting of a flower, but you hear the words about how he was longing and
mhm,
noticing
mhm,
sort of where he was in his community, right?
mm, mhm,
Garden community and not being happy with it. And
mm.
even at a young age, I work with 3 and 4 year olds. They were able to tap in to that feeling like he wants to be with them.
That's great.
And so I would love to play for you
Please do.
the book reading and our blended garden discussion. Awesome. All right. All right. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. All right. Can you see that?
Oh, wow. Big white screen. Love it.
Yes. All right. So this is my reading of the blended garden with my 3 and 4 year olds. This is a beautiful book written by my friend Jahida, and it's about a very special garden. The title is called The Blended Garden, and it was written by Jahida Diab and illustrated by Anna O'Donnell. That's that. So once upon a time, in a colorful garden, a dandelion sat alone and disheartened. The dandelion saw many flowers from afar, all arranged by their colors. It was quite bizarre. How do you think the dandelion is feeling? Sad, right? It's all by itself. Why is it all by itself? Why is it all by itself? Good question. Let's discover more.
It's a great question. Why is it by itself?
Part of the colorful array of tall stems in the wind where they bend and sway. So it looks like that dandelion wants to be a part near the other flowers. The old lady gardener with her hat tilted low, arranging her flowers with a wish that they would grow. Now this old lady gardener was quite confusing. She thought sorting flowers was quite amusing. placing this flower here and that flower there to match, examine, and measure and compare. As each flower lived in its own special space, apart from their friends, it was a very sad place. With arms reaching outward, they tried to connect, but sadly divided, they could not intersect. Why? Why do the why would the flowers want to be together? Why do people want to be together? Because what? Right, because then you're not lonely. The flowers were angry and they began to stand tall. They said to the gardener, "This makes no sense at all. We are all so different, our colors unique. Blend us together and you'll see a great tree."
What'd you say?
He was noticing mixing our colors, red, yellow, and blue. Our petals like
And the
flags.
sunflowers' faces were sad.
Rainbow of ribbons blowing in the wind. The flowers protested, "We want
to be friends." My favorite
not
part.
separate and sorted by a particular kind. Growing together is how we're designed. The old lady sat in her front yard. She said to her flowers, "I've been working so hard. Sorting my flowers is tiresome indeed. And could this dandelion be more than a weed?"
What'd you say?
So tired she was that she took a long nap. And as she slept, zip, zoom, zap, something magical happened. The dandelion slept, then slowly transformed, taking flight in the night. Above the gardener it soared. All was quiet and just beneath the full moon, unaware of the magic that would begin very soon. The old lady gardener awoke from a dream of a blended garden filled with dandelion seeds. As dawn approached, she began stretching and yawning, her arms reaching up to the glory of morning. And as she lied in her wheelbarrow, feeling rested and free, envisioning her flowers as a field of wheat. This blended garden that I saw in my dream was inspiring, extraordinary, and satisfying to see. The old lady gardener with her flowers agreed. There is magic within this dandelion seed. I will no longer sort my dear flowers, friends. And she blew the dandelion seeds into the wind. Have you ever blown a dandelion? Yes. Yeah, so she blew the seeds into the wind. Blow this way and that way and land where you may. You are part of my garden, and here you will stay.
That was awesome, Lynnette.
Dandelions. Yes. Now I'm thinking, here are some words that we can sort of think about. What does it mean to be, in the beginning of the book, the flowers were divided. And Mila, I need your help with this. In the beginning of the book, the flowers were divided. Does anybody know what divided means? What does it mean? Say it louder. Different. What else do you think? Separate. Separate. That's right. Divided means separate. What means the same color? What means the same? What means the same color? What means the same color? We're all together, right? Yeah. So that's right. Divided means separate. I'm wondering who knows what the word transformed means? When something transforms. Changes. It changes. Oh my gosh, you're so wise. So yes, so when the gardener went to sleep, the garden transformed. Now, in the beginning, that gardener, she had all her flowers separate. But what did the flowers really want? right, to be together. And I'm thinking sometimes it could be that way for people too, right? Sometimes people keep themselves separate, but you really start to see the beauty of everybody when we're all together. So does anybody have anything to say about the book? Anybody want to make any comments? Or what did you think of the book? Yeah? Okay. Oh, look at that. It's almost time to go. And then they just started talking about like other stuff.
I love it. I love it. I love how they knew, like they understood that whole separate concept. That's great.
They
Oh,
definitely
Lynnette, thank you.
and they got like that everything was like together in its own, compartment.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Oh, that was awesome. That was great. The end of the book with the big words, I was like, I don't know if little ones will get the words, but the older ones maybe. But they understood transformed.
Right. And I think, as a teacher, you just decide which out of all of these words here, like
Right.
which, like 2 or 3 that maybe they could break down, that maybe they've heard before.
Right, right,
And
right.
so divided and transformed were 2 words that I could see, you know what, maybe they might know what this is. And you can build upon it,
Right.
This was just the first time I read the book. I think,
Right.
every time you read it, they're going to take away a better understanding of what that vocabulary is.
Exactly. And you can draw pictures and ways that they can, engage even more with the idea. But I love the conversation, that you had. And I love that how you shared about how you bring diversity into your classroom to the little ones, because it really is so important. I always say,
Yeah.
adults were once children. That's why at the end of the book you have that little girl. Because I wanted a picture that showed, we're all children at one time. And that is really where, you really till the soil of who you're going to be as a human being as you grow up. That's why I love working with young children. I know you do too.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you, Lynnette. I wish we had like so much more time to chat. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, reading it with the children, I think, like there were different takeaways. Being like working in schools and consulting for diversity work, there were some other takeaways that I, like as a grown up, noticed or took away.
Oh, yeah. And that, listen, because we're going to run out of time, I would love to have you back on to have the adult talk, because that's the one thing I'm realizing with this book. I wrote it as a children's book, but the more I had my adult friends read it, we were finding real adult metaphors and things that we can talk about as adults.
Yeah.
So save all that, because we can come back and have a grown talk. Your hair looks lovely, darling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I can't wait. I definitely want to talk about affinity spaces, and just sort of like the role that they play, the important role that they play.
See,
and
affinity spaces, I don't even know what that is. So we definitely have to do another chat. I may have to wait a while because it's hard to find you.
Yeah, I know. But Jahida, you don't know what
I'm glad
space is?
Affinity spaces. I don't really listen to terms. I'm more of a, you know me. I can watch a movie and I don't know the name of the person, but I could tell you all about the movie, what it meant, and my takeaway.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me what affinity space is, and then I'll say, oh, like when I did the Oreo with Georgette, I didn't know what an Oreo was, but I knew what an Oreo was because I lived it. So what is affinity space?
The idea of an affinity space is sort of a group. So similar to like a support group. But a lot of these can be identity based. So it's an identity based space similar to a support group. So, in my school, we have affinity spaces for the children of color. We have affinity spaces for the Jewish children. We have affinity, like spaces that they can be in and see people around them who have the same shared experience.
Okay. I understand now. So see, that's a term that was created from something that was already happening. You know what I mean? So no, so like appropriation, I learned maybe 7 years ago what appropriation was, but you see it all the time. You know what I mean? And this is good because there's a lot of language that has been created. And the truth of the matter is, we are now talking about diversity, inclusion, equity. These are all buzzwords now. But this is something from civil rights. This was just how it was. But now we've put a language on top of a lifestyle, and it's good that people learn this language. And as they're learning the language, they also need to understand the lifestyle and the people behind it and the voices behind it and where these words come from. Because I remember the first time 15 years ago, someone said to me, "Hey, would you like to come to the diversity group?" And I was like, "I'm not a parent, I'm a teacher here, but thank you." But now everywhere you go, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's everywhere. So, these are buzzwords that I know you're familiar with because this is your platform. And these are words that we do need to get out. Look, I wrote a book about inclusion. I have no idea what affinity spaces are, but having the compassion to know that, everyone needs a space where they feel
safe. And it's gathering in these safe spaces, of shared identity that allows us to engage in conversations just sort of that maybe we normally wouldn't have,
And we need to come back on and do another conversation because there's so many things I want to talk to you about like that. But there's so many things I want to talk to you about with this book.
Look forward to it. I really look forward to it.
Yay, I'm so excited. And just even, thank you. But wait, I'm cutting you off because we girls, I could do that. We like sister girls. Before this cuts us off, I cut you off before this cuts us off. But there's just so many, how do I want to say it? There's so many things that we can talk about just being brown African-American women working in communities and environments that were not always diverse, but that are now transitioning and trying to be diverse, and what that looks like for us, what that feels like for us, the experiences, because it's been a long time. It's been like, 20, 25 years. So much has happened, and these are things that we need to hear and create a platform for and talk about too. And
the fact that we're working in these schools now, let's say 200 years ago, maybe we wouldn't have been.
No.
So even just thinking about that, we are that blended garden, right? But even within that blended garden, there are times when we have to step outside of that and come together.
Right. And have these conversations.
Like flowers, there is something in that. But I think it's the mindset of inclusiveness, right? Of acceptance.
And that would be an affinity space for teachers of color.
Right.
Did I use the word right?
We have that. Yes, it'd be, at my school, we have that. We get together, everyone,
I know. It's awesome.
And we talk about things that we might not be comfortable enough to talk about in the wider community.
Right.
Experiences.
And everyone is welcome to the conversation, but we do have to have our own conversations because it's our experience.
Yeah. And somebody else saying like, oh, you know what? I went through that. So and so. And then it's like, oh, you too? It's just like, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. I'm not the only one that fees like this. That's sometimes.
Yeah. We have to come on and do another one and talk about, because there's so many analogies I've had over the years. And you learn, it makes you a better teacher. And it also makes you more inclusive because you can go the opposite direction and kind of be like, I'm going to shut down. But no. I'm going to educate you and I'm going to help you and bring you in and let you understand what this sounds like, how it's received, and all because children are listening too.
Absolutely.
And they're watching, and a lot of things are not intentional or even mean. It's just, you don't know. Like, I didn't know what affinity spaces was, but I knew. I didn't know what the word meant, but I knew. Things,
microaggressions.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to come back another time. You let me know, because I know, you like Obama. You like Michelle Obama. Like, I got you, Lynnette. You're doing this tonight, whether you like it or not. I was telling Kyle, I was like, she better show up. What time is it, Kyle? Kyle was the tech.
I saw your face when you were on your phone. You're like,
so I was like, where's she at?
And then you were like, oh, you're here. I was like, yes, I am here.
Thank you, Lynnette.
On time.
Yes. And I thank you for putting up the book and reading it to your children. I appreciate that so much.
Of course. Make sure you do the same. It's a lovely read.
Yes. I'm going to continue doing some author visits and things like that. And we'll do some more stuff together.
And it would be great. Make sure you tape your conversations that happen like afterwards.
Okay. I will. Yeah.
All right, Tahita. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Lynette. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.